My life is a storybook that came true.
Look out! Yes.
When I first got into WWE, I had no experience at all. 4 years passed. Bobby Heenan goes, I am going to create you as the Brooklyn Brawler. They said, we want you to wrestle a new guy who has never been in the ring. And that man's name is Dwayne Johnson.
You're The Rock's first match.
I'm The Rock's first match.
You lost a lot of matches.
I enhanced talent. I didn't lose.
Do you think about the Hall of Fame?
There's no way that one day I won't be in the Hall of Fame. I just hope it's not when I'm dead.
What do you think is the legacy that you've left behind?
I have more contribution than a lot of people, and I'm not asking for anything. I'm just telling the truth.
Steve, I don't even know where to start with you. What a career.
Well, the career is beyond my expectations. It all began when I was 16 years old. I used to watch wrestling on television in Brooklyn, New York, but it was called Lucha Libre. All the commentation was in Spanish. I did not care about the commentation. I was looking at the guys and I was saying, holy cow. It was Bruno Sammartino, the Valiant Brothers. There was people like that, superstar Billy Graham. And I'm 16 years old. I'm in my mother's backyard looking at wrestling magazines with my brother and my friends, not realizing I am going to wrestle every one of these guys on their way out. And I actually had Bruno Sammartino's last match of his entire career, which he reminded me of every autograph session I was on, which he was a great guy. He really was. I don't know if you ever met him.
I never met him, no.
Well, I'll tell you what, he was a fantastic person. He had no ego, and he just had all good intentions in life.
Did you think at 16 that this was possible, or did it just seem like a crazy dream?
It was possible to me because I got a spark inside that became confidence. And when you get confidence inside of you and you believe it with all your heart and soul, people around you can feel it. But the people around me were telling me that I was never going to make it. It's a dumb dream. You're not gonna reach that goal. And I call those people inspiration. I says, you're telling me I'm not going to do it. You're just driving me even more towards doing it. They said, don't you fear it? Aren't you worried about it? And I was 16. Now, why is a 16-year-old able to say fear and worry does not exist because it has never changed the outcome of any situation? They looked at me like, you're too young to say that. You know what I mean? But I knew it.
Where'd you get that from?
I always felt that. I think I made it up, or I don't think I read it because I was 16. I said just crazy things when I was 16. The teacher says, what's your theory? And I raised my hand. I said, a possible explanation. Why did I say this? You know what I mean? It's like freaky things like that. Speed of light is 186,000 miles per second. It's like I things are retained in my mind. So anyway, as I got older, I started getting more into the wrestling, mostly bodybuilding, because I was looking at the wrestlers' bodies, and I emulated. I looked at Bruno Sammartino, and I worked my chest, and I got really big. My brother was looking at superstar Billy Graham. He got biceps like bowling balls. You know what I mean? So it started like that. So then finally, someone gives me tickets to Madison Square Garden. I'm watching the show. The guy next to me says to me, he says, I could tell this is your first wrestling match you ever been at. I says, and how's that? He goes, because the way you're watching the match, you're watching it like you're intrigued by it. Like you're looking at it in a way that no one else looks at it. I said, I'm fascinated. I'm fascinated. He said to me, well, if you want to meet all these guys, they go to this bar that's about 4 blocks away. It's called the Savoy. He goes, wait about an hour. First of all, it's going to take you about an hour for the garden to empty because there's 23,000 people. And go to that bar and you'll meet all these guys that you're watching in the ring right now. So I looked at my friends because they were with me and I said, what do you think? They said, we're in, you know? So I go, we walked because you take the train. There's no cars in New York when we're kids. And there was cars when we were kids.
Sure.
But we go to the Savoy, and I walk up to Mr. Fuji, and it was he was talking to I think Bob Orton Jr. or somebody like that. And I said, Mr. Fuji, I am so intrigued. It's my first wrestling match. I can't believe it. I think I fell in love with the sport. And he says to me, can't you see we are talking? He goes, you are interrupting me. I said, okay, I apologize. And I went and sat at the bar. And I said, holy cow, strike one. I said, and who's sitting next to me at the bar? Jimmy Superfly Snuka. So I say, Jimmy. He goes, brother. He became a very good friend of mine. And I said, Jimmy, I just want to let you know, I've never been to a wrestling match before. I said, I watched you fly off the top rope and I watched you wrestle. And it was amazing. And for some reason, I wanted, with all my heart and soul, I want to be a wrestler.
Mm.
He turned to me and he said, brother, if you believe in what you want to do and you have it in your heart, you could do anything you want. If you want to be a wrestler, you will be a wrestler. I never forgot those words. Later, Jimmy and I became really good friends. I know his daughter. We traveled together. We shared rooms together. My first year in wrestling, when I first got into WWE, they gave me a deal where they said, if you show up and somebody doesn't, if you come to the town, somebody doesn't show up, we'll pay you, we'll pay your trans, we'll pay everything. And if you don't, if everybody shows up, you will not work, you will not get paid, you will not get your expenses paid. And I said, fair enough. I said, I'll do it. So I did it. I made $43,000 that year because everybody was not screwed up, but they had demons.
Sure.
And they would miss shows and they would just do all this and that. But to backtrack a little bit, I was going to St. Francis College for medical technology, and I was doing very well with my grades, and I had a 3-hour gap in between my classes. Yeah. So I worked in a supermarket in Brooklyn as a dairy manager, and then my boss who was I wasn't a manager. I was under the manager. Then the safe got robbed, and then they gave everybody a lie detector test. So my manager failed the lie detector test.
Wow.
And they promoted me to manager. So I worked that job probably for like 2 or 3 years as I was going to college. And then a medical technologist comes in the classroom and he goes, I would just like to speak to all of you. And if you actually study hard and you do well in college, you can make up to $14,000 a year. I said to myself, I'm out. I am out of here. I don't want to do this. So then when the manager got fired, I became the supermarket. I became the manager. I was full time. So I was making decent money, really, really good money. And I kept going to the Garden, kept going to the Savoy, kept going, talking to the wrestlers. Now they're getting to know me. Now they're calling me Steve. I'm like, oh my God. And then they told me, show up, Arnold Skolin. He said, show up to Ag Hall, Agricultural Hall it's called. It's in Pennsylvania. We do TV tapings, and we do, in Reading, Pennsylvania, we do 3 hours of TV in Ag Hall, and it'll be 3 weeks of TV.
Yeah.
We won't air it, each week. But to the people in Ag Hall, I had no experience at all. I would get thrown in the ring with Roddy Piper. He'd beat the shit out of me. Then I would get thrown in the ring with Sheik. He would beat the shit out of me. And then I get thrown in the ring with Piper. All these different wrestlers. The people in Ag Hall were saying, this guy is Superman. He's taking everybody's finish, but he still keeps coming out. Mm. The people at home are saying, this guy loses every night.
Mm.
But the thing is, as time was passing, I was getting better and better and better. Then Ricky Steamboat came in. Then they used to put a paper on the wall and show all the matches. And my name was next to Ricky Steamboat. And I went up to Ricky Steamboat and I said, Mr. Steamboat, my name is Steve Lombardi. I'd just like you to know I'm going to wrestle you tonight. He says, it's a pleasure to meet you. I just want to let you know I do not beat dish rags. He goes, I'm going to give you a competitive match. You're going to have offense, and you're going to really, really have a great match. I said, really? So then we go in the ring. Ricky Steamboat was a fantastic wrestler. He's over in the Carolinas, and we had a great match. And I mean, this guy was selling for me. You know what? He's doing double leapfrogs. He's doing this. He's doing that. And then I come back, and all the other wrestlers seen it. I remember Tito Santana came up and says, "How did it feel?" I said, "How did it feel?" I said, I could always do this.
Yeah.
I said, "You guys were always just not giving me any offense." From that day on, they started giving me offense. Then time was passing. And then all of a sudden, make 4 years pass or something, Bobby Heenan comes up to me. He says, "Steve, I've been watching you." He says, "You learned how to wrestle. Now I'm going to teach you how to make money." He goes, "I am going to create you as the Brooklyn Brawler." He says, you're going to wrestle with a rival of mine who's in my family right now, Terry Taylor." He says, "And I am going to take you under my wing." He goes, "And you are now in the Heenan family."
Wow.
So all of a sudden I go from Brooklyn Brawler getting beat every night.
Yeah.
And now he puts he says, "Wear a Yankee shirt." The only reason I wore a Yankee shirt because in the 80s, everybody hated the Yankees.
Yeah, don't they still hate the Yankees?
And he says, wear a Yankee shirt because you're going to get a lot of heat. And he said, "Wear a leather cap." He goes, "Put a cigar." And then we were in Hershey, Pennsylvania. We're wrestling. He goes, "Come outside with me." He said, "You see that mud right there?" He goes, "Roll around in that mud." I said, "Bobby, come on, stop joking with me." He goes, "No, I want you to be a grimy, greasy, dirty, ass-kicking Brooklynite." I said, "Anything you say, Bobby. I'll do anything you want." And then I just started winning every single night. He was walking out with me, and people were weird. Like when I went to the Garden, they were asking for autographs of the Brooklyn Brawler, not knowing that I was Steve Lombardi because I had a leather cap on. And they weren't putting two and two together.
Quick pause from this episode to thank our sponsor, NordVPN. And I don't log on to the internet anywhere without the protection of NordVPN, especially when I'm traveling. Public Wi-Fi, as you know, is notorious for being a hotbed for hackers to jump in there and steal your data. But with NordVPN, it gives you peace of mind when you're traveling. And I love how seamlessly you can jump between your phone, your tablet, your laptop, and they've got over 6,300 servers in 111 countries. You can change your virtual location with just one click so you can access content that may not be available where you live. So that means you can access the WWE network where maybe only Peacock exists. And if we're being honest here, the OG WWE network it's better, okay, than what we have on Peacock right now. It also means you can get things like UFC pay-per-views for a fraction of the cost. And speaking of a fraction of the cost, check this out. NordVPN.com/CVV has this exclusive deal that's going on right now. For less than $3 a month, you can get set up. This is a limited time deal, so check it out while it's happening at NordVPN.com/CVV.
Was your shirt ripped up at this point?
Bobby said, "Rip the shirt up. And when people ask you why your shirt is ripped up, I want you to tell them this is where the rip came when Hogan was crawling up and grabbing me with desperation. And he tried to stand up and he couldn't. And this one is when Randy Savage, he snatched me and he was like fighting for desperation and he tore my shirt." He says, "You can say anything you want." He says, "Don't worry about it." So then I'm wrestling. Then finally the magic comes. I wrestle in Madison Square Garden, the place that people told me I would never wrestle in my entire life. They told me that, and I told them, keep telling me it and watch it. And I wrestled in Madison Square Garden. And it was funny because I would watch it in the Garden. It was pre-taped. Then I would go back to my house where I was living with my parents at the time, and I would watch myself on the Garden because I had an hour delay. And I wrestled in the Garden dozens and dozens and dozens of times. So time was going on. It lasted about a year with Terry Taylor. And then we wrestled Bobby wrestled Terry Taylor in WrestleMania 5 at Trump Plaza in Atlantic City. And then I jumped back and he beat Bobby in 5 minutes. And then I jumped in the ring. I beat the hell out of him. And then he made a comeback. He beat me up. He took my hat. He threw it to the audience. And then when after the match, I went outside and they said, "Vince wants you in the back. He wants you to do an interview right away right away. And I got in the back, and he goes, okay, let's talk about this. He goes, where's your hat? I says, I must have lost it or something. He goes, no, you didn't. Terry Taylor threw it to the audience. I said, Vince, all due respect, you cannot make me a stooge. I said, I will not say bad things about somebody. Yes, he did throw it to the audience, but I am not going to come out and I'm not going to stooge him out because that's the way I grew up. I grew up in Brooklyn where stooging is the worst crime you could commit. So I wrestle, and then after I beat up Terry Taylor in Trump Plaza in WrestleMania 5, it renewed the program with Terry Taylor for another 9 months. Then Brooklyn Brawler started fading out, back into doing, losing to people. Then the magic phone rings. The phone rings, it was Howard Finkel. He said, Steve, Vince told me to give you a call. We want you to wrestle a new guy who has never been in the ring and never wrestled, ever. And he's going to wrestle you in Corpus Christi, Texas. And it was in 1996. And he goes, and that man's name is Dwayne Johnson.
You're The Rock's first match.
I'm The Rock's first match ever in front of 15,000 people. And then when I talked to Rock, he says, well, you had my dad's first match in WWF too. And he actually did an episode on Young Rock, season 2, episode 8, Young Rock, cheap plug, you know what I mean? But he did it, but I met Rock, and I was driving with Rock, and I said to Rock, Rock, how many matches did you have? He goes, Steve, this is my first match. I said, your first match at WWF? Because it was F at the time. And he says, no, my first match ever in my life in front of an audience. And then we went to the dressing room. We wrote down, we talked about the match. I told him, let's do this, let's do that. First of all, they said, he said to me, we were walking with Michael Hayes down the hallway, and he goes, how's the Brooklyn Brawler going to beat me? And I turned to him and I says, Vince did not bring you all the way here to lose. You are going over. And then Rock says, going over, that is unheard of for a person's first match. And in front of 15,000 people. And I said to myself, this is going to be fun as hell for me. This is going to be so fun and so easy, it's ridiculous, because he had a great look. A great look to me, people would say that's 90%. I say it's 10%. Because I've wrestled football players, I've wrestled bodybuilders, I've wrestled guys that look like they could win Mr. Olympia, but they got 2 left feet. Now, I knew Rock had agility because I've seen him work out in the ring. So he walks into the ring in Corpus Christi. And first of all, he goes to Bruce Pritchard. He says, give me some music. And then Bruce Pritchard gives him some really crappy music. And he goes, that's the last time I'll ever ask for music. He said, he actually says it in commentary in the Young Rock. And he walks out and he just gives it generic, like, hey, and the people are going, get out of here. We don't want to see you. We don't want to see you. Go back to Florida. And he's taking it to heart. He's taking it to heart. I loved it. Not because they booed him, because I know psychology. The psychology is the more they boo you, the more they're going to cheer you. So what I did was I went in the ring and I took him to the ropes. I said, just listen to me. Believe in me. Self-belief is the secret of success. And that is the bottom line. And he goes to me, Kanaka, which means friend in Samoan. He goes, I will believe you. I will believe in you. And then we did it. I took him to the ropes and I hit him once and I go, I'm the man. I went to throw him in. He reversed. He threw me in. He gave me a backdrop. And then the people booed him again. And he says, these people hate me. He's whispering to me. These people hate me. I says, watch the magic. And then I said to him, I says, watch what happens. Then he did a bunch of high spots where he jumped to the second rope. He did a flying press. And then he tried a showboat and he did a nip up. And then Vince got real. And then they go back and they look at Vince and then Vince gets like, oh, that was kind of, and then, it was like showboating, but he was showing me his athleticism. He was showing the people their athleticism. They were booing the hell out of him.
Mm.
Then I kicked him in the stomach. I said, watch. I kicked him in the stomach. And then I beat the hell out of him to the point where people thought he could never win. Then I flipped him over and I put him in a reverse chin lock, which means he's on his butt. I'm on my knees. I got him in a headlock.
Yep.
Then he takes his hand and he puts it straight out. He puts his arm straight out. Then he starts shaking his hand. Then he starts raising it. Now, this is the psychology of the business that no one realizes. He says to me, first of all, he looked up at me. He goes, what do we do now? And then he says, this is where my dad taught me. This is where my dad taught me that it's not about the wrestling. It's about what the people think. I said, if the people believe in you, they are going to let you know. And you could hear us say that in Young Rock. Mm. And then as he's raising his hand, the people are going silent. They're going silent. And then all of a sudden, as his hand gets all the way up, we're both standing up. I still got his head. I said, now here's your comeback. Make it a good one. And then he gives me 2 elbows in the stomach. He throws me around like a rag doll, beats the hell out of me. And then I stop him. I go to throw him in. He reverses, throw me in. I go for a backdrop. He gives me a sunset flip. 1, 2, 3. 15,000 people stand up out of their seats yelling, we love Dwayne. We love Dwayne. Then they do a flashback to Stone Cold and Triple H in the back, who everybody always thought, oh, they're going to take my spot. He's going to take my spot. He's take my spot. That was the creation of Dwayne Johnson. After that, he got a contract. Then he became The Rock. And then he got confidence. He had confidence. And I just talked to him on the phone like a week ago, and I told him, I said, you believed in yourself. You believed in yourself. The guy is like, he's not opening doors. He's kicking doors open. He's kicking doors open. Today's the first day of the start of his football company. You know that?
Right, yeah, the UFL.
It's the first day, and he just put a video out today. This man has got self-belief. He's got confidence. He realizes that you don't get opportunity, you make opportunity. Yeah. And he sent me a giant picture that's about the size of a 46-inch TV set, and it's got him hip tossing me in the first match we ever had in the top of the picture, and it's got $7 in glass, and in gold on the bottom it says, Steve, I had $7 to my name when I had this match. He goes, and I can never thank you enough. I mean, to me, it's hanging on my wall at home.
What a gift.
I love it. I loved it. And even though he was worth, millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars, that meant more than the money. Yeah. That meant more than the money.
He did an interview recently and he was asked, who's your toughest opponent?
I know that. I just talked to him about that.
And he said Brooklyn Brawler.
He said Brooklyn Brawler. And I asked him why he said that. He goes, well, what was I going to say? He goes, was I going to say The Undertaker? Was I going to say... He goes, and plus you were my first match, so that would be the toughest match. And that's what he told me. And I was shocked too. I was really shocked too that he said that.
You had a lot of people's first matches.
I had Bret Hart's first WWF match. I had Mark Henry's first match of his whole life. I had Ricky Steamboat's first WWF match. I had, there's so many.
Is it Warrior?
Warrior. I wrestled him about 47 days. And one time during our tenure, they came to me and they said, we're going to ask Warrior, we're going to ask him to have you win today to test his attitude. And I know he would have said, fuck this. I don't want to do this. I don't care about this. This and that. Because that's the way he was, He used to walk in the dressing room and go, I'm not going to shake your hand. I seen you yesterday. We're going to shake your hand. He was like that, but he liked me. And I took him in the room and I said, Jim, I don't know if I should do this or shouldn't do this, but you're my friend and I care about you. They're going to ask you to do a job for me. What I want you to do, and this is your choice, is to say anything for the business. I will do anything. And he did it.
Wow.
And I beat the Ultimate Warrior that night. And then after that, he wasn't the Ultimate Warrior. He became the Ultimate Warrior after they tested his attitude. And then after that, He wrestled. Then he beat Hulk Hogan. Then he was on Top of the World. Then he was on Bad Outs with the company. And then he was on good terms with the company. Then they put him in the Hall of Fame. And then he's in a private dressing room. And then I walk into the dressing room. He's the only one in there. He starts crying. He looks at me. He goes, I was just thinking about you. He goes, that video that you put out, which I actually produced because I was in charge of the interview room. And he goes, you're the only one that talked good about me. He goes, be prepared to stand up today because I'm going to tell the story about how you smartened me up to what they told you. And I said, Jim, don't do that. I presently work for the company. I'm going to be in the audience. He goes, well, that's bullshit. It's 30 years ago. He goes, it's 30 years ago. Why should it matter? I said, because I still work here and you don't work here anymore. He goes, well, I won't say that, but get ready to stand up anyway. And he said, where's Steve Lombardi? Please stand up. And all he said was, it's on YouTube. It's everywhere. Everyone can see it. He says, Steve took a lot of my anguish and he always kept a good attitude about it. And I want to thank him for that. That's all he said. And then the next day he was on Raw and he said, the day the warrior's heart stops beating, he will never be forgotten. He will live forever. And I took a picture with him the next day. And the following day he passed.
Yeah. Wow.
He passed, and I have that picture. He's very. He was very close to my heart. I mean, the things he's done. My rental car was broken down on the highway. I was all alone. There wasn't even cell phones back then. And then a limousine pulls up. It's him, Ultimate Warrior. He goes, "Don't worry, I got a phone in the limo." He goes, "You're with me for the rest of the week." He calls the rental car company, tells them the mile marker it's at. They pick it up. He takes me. He drives me to the towns. I'm going with Ultimate Warrior. He let me dress in his private dressing room. That's why when I watch some of these shows that say, "Oh, he had a bad attitude," I say, "Bull. He had a great attitude. You just had to understand him, and you had to talk to him, and he had to like you."
Well, nobody has anything bad to say about you.
Not that I know of. I'm sure they say it behind my back.
I think the only thing that people might say bad is you lost a lot of matches. That was your character.
Yeah, but the funny thing about it was I enhanced talent. I didn't lose. I chose to do that. I could have fought the other way and chose to be a big star, and my longevity would have never been 32 years.
Yeah.
But they realized my talent was I could hide their weaknesses and I could accentuate their strengths.
I think there's a lot of fans that go, Brooklyn Brawler lost a lot. He must not have been a good wrestler. And it's just so funny that they don't see you for what you really are.
They see it now because they used to say the word jobber. I don't care because my comeback used to be everybody's a jobber, and your boss is your jobbie. I mean, a job just means you have a job. Then they call it enhancement talent. Then it's starting to get it. Then they called it architect. Then they called it ring general. They even called me a ring general in Rock's show. We said, Rock, he's a ring general. Listen to everything he says. And I said, I'm not a ring general. I'm the most humble guy that you know because all I want to do was make everyone look great. And I did fail at times. Like I wrestled bodybuilders that just came out of Olympia who looked like they could do it, but they had 2 left feet and they just couldn't do it. They moved like robots. And then, so the Rock match passes, and it was always a phone call to me. I don't know why. My life is like a phone call. The phone rings. I'm washing my car in the driveway. My wife goes, Vince is on the phone. He wants to talk to you. I said, Vince. She goes, yeah, it's Vince McMahon. She's covering the speaker. I says, Vince. He goes, Steve, I need you to do something. I said, anything you want, Vince. I know that. He goes, I need you to fly to Calgary. He goes, and I need you to wrestle Bret Hart in the WWF World Heavyweight Championship in his hometown, which is the biggest match you could be in. I says, no problem. I had Bret's first match in Cincinnati Gardens when he came in. I love Bret. I would do it for Bret any day of the week. I said to him, I'll do it. He goes, but the only thing is, I want you to do it as doink. And I said to him, Vince, I don't mind the wrestling. I have no worry or fear of wrestling Bret, because I wrestled him many times and I'm comfortable with him and I like him and he likes me. I said, but the paint job, I mean, come on.
Is this the first time you had ever been Doink?
I've never painted in my life.
Where was the regular Doink?
The regular Doink was suspended for some reasons that I don't even know, and so I can't comment on. It was Matt Bourne.
Mm-hmm.
So I said to Vince, Vince, that's the only thing I worry about. He goes, ha ha ha, I knew you were going to say that. I have the plan right down here. He goes, the plan is we're going to fly you from Detroit. We're going to fly you to Cleveland, where Matt Bourne's wife's going to give you the Doink outfit in the baggage claim of Cleveland. Then you're going to get back on the plane. You're going to fly to Calgary, and you're going to meet Jill the Makeup Girl. Jill the Makeup Girl is going to teach you how to paint the Doink face and give you a diagram and all the necessities you need to paint up as Doink. Then we're going to fly you to Calgary, and you're going to wrestle Bret in the main event. I did all this in 2 days. I said to Vince, you can count on me. He goes, ha, 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 I know I can. I know I can count on you. And I did it. And the funny part about it was, it's like going from, I'm the Brooklyn Brawler, when I get my hands on you, to but when I walked through that curtain, he was the hottest heel in WWF. People erupted, and it was Bret's hometown. So the pop was bigger than ever. So we had that match. That was dark, unfortunately, but you could ask Bret. Bret will contest to that entire story. And
did any of the fans know that it was you?
Not one person. Because at that time, I wasn't doing all the characters. All I did was Brooklyn Brawler and then Doink the Clown.
Yeah.
And then after that, they flew me all over the country to do Doink the Clown. They flew me overseas to do Doink the Clown. I had my best matches with X-Pac because he was a great worker. I love X-Pac to death. And he was making me look great. And I was using old baseball moves to do the Abe Knuckleball Schwartz, like the baseball punch, to slide between the legs.
Yeah.
And then I pitched Harvey Whippleman, who was a good friend of mine, to be a manager, to be outside as like a baseball manager, to give me signs in sign language, like they do in baseball games.
The third base coach. Yeah.
Yeah, like that. That's what I pitched, but it never came to light. But Doink the Clown, to me, was a creation. It's not my creation. It was from that movie, The Warriors. And do you remember that movie?
No.
It's called The Warriors, and they had gangs. And one of the gangs were a gang of baseball players with faces painted like baseballs. It's the most underrated movie. That was the most watched movie I've ever talked to anybody about. And I took that to heart. And the way I became him, Abe Knuckleball Schwartz, is very interesting too. Damien Demento, you know who that is, right?
Of course.
He was a great artist. I walk into the dressing room and I said, Damien, I got an idea. I says, on this napkin, just draw a face with a baseball face on it, where it's a baseball. So I do the anonymous, the knock on the door. Doom, doom, doom. Who is it? Vince, Steve Lombardi, may I talk to you? Come in. I go up and talk to him. I show him the napkin. He takes his eyeglasses. He puts the tip of his nose. He looks at it, and he says, very interesting. I'll give it some thought. I said, thank you very much, Vince. Can I say one more thing? He goes, what's that? I said, it's never been done before. He goes, really? That had him do it. Because if it's never been done before, he's going to do it.
Yeah.
He's going to do it. So that was the way Doink. Then he had Shane produce all the vignettes, where I'd be in a baseball field and I'd be hitting all these big hits, like you hit a bat, clenching the ball, this and that. Then you'd pan out and it'd be a little league baseball team, stuff like that. But I took it to heart. I learned all about baseball. I never watched baseball. I learned about American League, National League. I knew everything. You know what I mean? I wanted to know the part and live the part. So I did that. I did Doink the Clown. I did Brooklyn Brawler. I did Kimchee. Oh, that's another thing. Another phone call. We need a guy to manage Kamala, and we need him to be in a safari outfit with a mask and a safari hat, and we're going to call him Kimchee, and he's going to manage a huge Ugandan guy. He's 450 pounds, and you're going to talk Ugandan.
Yeah.
He goes, so we're like, ooga chugga, ooga chugga, ooga chugga. But the truth of it is, which people don't know, is James. His name was James, and I traveled with him too, which I did not enjoy because he wanted me to drive him while he sat in the back, and he wanted me to wear the mask while I drove. And today a mask is nothing, but back then you'd be stopped and when. But anyway, the whole thing was he'd be like, "Ooga chugga." He'd always be in the main events. And I'd be Brooklyn Brawler in the first match. Then I would change my clothes, and I'd be Kimchee in the last match. And I'd be in the main events with Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage and Ultimate Warrior and all this kind of stuff. So I get two days every day. And James would go, "Ooga chugga, ooga chugga, ooga." And then he'd walk up. I call him over to the side, and he'd go to me, "Kimchee, I done forgot my spots." And I said, "James, he hit you in the head, then you hit him, he takes a bump, you go for an elbow, and then he moves." He goes, "I got you." I go, "Ooga chugga, get out, go, ooga, ooga, ooga." See, people don't understand. It's got nothing to do with winning or losing. It's the psychology of what you do and how you do it, which makes you that enhancement guy that I was, not a loser, a creator.
Did the term jobber ever bother you?
Not once. I didn't care.
Is there anyone that you didn't work with? I mean, think of all the people you're talking about.
Oh my God. I've worked with, it's easier for me to say who I didn't work with.
Yeah. Is there anyone you didn't work with?
I never worked, I worked with Steve Austin backstage because we did vignettes. I worked with, I beat Hunter.
Yes.
I beat the game. I beat the game at the game. You know what I mean? It's so funny because even the way it happened is Chris Jericho ran in the ring. He bulldogged him when he was about to pedigree me. It was a handicap match. It was Kai and Tai.
I remember watching it live.
Yeah, it was Kai and Tai and me, and I was like a ring general. I was telling him, "Go around the ring. Let's attack him from different angles. Let's go in there, and then we just beat the shit out of him." And then he pedigrees both Kai and Tai's. Then he goes to pedigree me, and then Jericho hits the ring, gives a bulldog to Triple H, and then I jump on him and I cover him. It's on SmackDown. 1, 2, 3, and all I hear is Michael Cole. "I can't believe I'm saying this. The Brooklyn Brawlers just beat Triple H on SmackDown. I can't believe it. And they show in a big Titantron. Chris Jericho is actually on the Tron saying to a limo driver of Hunter, he's going, "Triple H is having a bad night. He just got beat by the Brooklyn Brawler. He told me I could have his limo tonight." And Hunter and Stephanie are in the ring looking at this, and then it becomes like a comedy almost.
Yeah,
because they're going crazy. He takes off, and then Triple H is of course got to get his heat back. So he starts beating the shit out of me, throws me outside, and then I got blood. I was bleeding. And then I'll never forget, he looks at me, he goes, "Good." He throws me in, and then he just pounds my head. And then it don't matter. I come back, he goes to me, "Yeah, but you need Jericho to win." I says, "The same way you need a sledgehammer to win." You know what I mean? I didn't say it in a cocky way. Yeah. I said it in a fun way.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is, in the books, I beat Triple H.
Yeah.
Who's
the best person you've ever been in the ring with?
The best wrestler I ever been in the ring with is Shawn Michaels. And that's on YouTube also. Shawn Michaels, Madison Square Garden. It was for the WWF World Heavyweight Championship, which I was the main event. And the funny part about that is he made me look like I was going to win. He was kicking out like 2.5. But the funny part about the whole thing was, this is how it came about. Let me backtrack again. I won a battle royal. I was in a battle royal at Madison Square Garden. Ken Shamrock was scheduled to go over. Ken Shamrock hurt his sternum in his chest. He couldn't wrestle. Everybody goes to Da Vinci's room. I was with that group, and they say, Ken Shamrock cannot win the battle royal. He cannot be in the battle royal. He cannot go over. We have to change the finish. Vince he always put his glasses to the tip of his nose. He goes, looks at me, he put Brooklyn Brawler over. He's local, forgetting he advertised the winner of the match wrestles the World Heavyweight Championship in the next Garden show. I remembered. No one else remembered. And I said, yes, sir, anything you want. I walk in the ring, I win the battle royal, I beat the shit out of everybody, and dude, I come out, and I remember I walked to Jack Lanza, and I said, they advertised this, you'll never get your match. You'll never get your match. They'll never do it. They'll never do it. And I says, again, the knock on the door, Vince, I didn't realize you advertised that the winner of this match has the World Heavyweight Championship match in Madison Square Garden next show. And he goes, he just hesitates. You can count to 5. And he looks at me and he goes, you got your match. And I said, holy shit. But Bret was the champion. So I told Bret was all for it. You know what I mean? He said, no problem. I don't care. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
It's all good. So that's 2 months away is the next Garden show. I'm going to be in the main event.
Yeah.
But in between that was the Montreal Screwjob.
Mm.
So you know what the Montreal Screwjob is.
Of course.
So forget about the controversy. I don't care if it was real, fake, this, that, all. Everybody's explanation. Sean's now the champion.
Yeah.
So I am saying to myself, I just lost my match because Sean's attitude back then was not what it is today.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because he was arrogant. He bucked the system. He was very outspoken. Now he's a different person. He found God, who I never thought was lost. But it's just a joke, and no shot at Sean. But Sean will tell you the same thing. I'm not the same person today as I was yesterday.
I think we can all see that.
But I'm sitting in a bar with Arnold Skolin. We're drinking. Sean's in a bar with Kevin Nash and a bunch of other wrestlers. And Skolin's drunk. He goes, hey, Sean, you're wrestling in the next Garden? He goes, who? He goes, this guy right here next to me, Brooklyn Brawler. I said, oh, here it goes. I'm ready to get cursed out. Sean goes, oh my God, can you super kick? I'll leapfrog. Can you do all this? We're going to tear the house down. I said, holy shit, he's into it. I love it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I wrestled in front of 23,000 people in the main event in Madison Square Garden for the WWF World Heavyweight Championship. Google it. It's out there. It's out there. I did it. For a person who's 16 years old that says I want to be a wrestler, I'm the main event in WWF.
Wow.
Madison Square Garden, and I'm in the main event, and Undertaker walks into the dressing room and he looks at the paper and he sees my name over his and he goes, what the fuck is this? And I said, I have nothing to do with it, Mark. I have nothing to do with it. It's just the way the chips fell. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if you watch that match, I don't know if you ever seen that match?
No.
You could find it. It's on YouTube. But he gave me a match where he kicked out on 2.5. Hunter came to the top. It was the first day of DX where Chyna and Hunter were on the outside of the ring, and Hunter jumps to the apron. I pop him. I nail him. I nailed Sean. Sean's doing all the stuff I do. Gets on the rope. I rock it. He jumps off. I clothesline him. I do all kinds of stuff. I go to I sunset flip him. He grabs the ropes, this and that. The referee kicks his hands. Triple H is holding his hands. The referee kicks him. He falls 1, 2.5, 3. They thought that was going to be the biggest screw job ever, or a fluke, I should say, not screw job, fluke. They thought Brooklyn Brawler was going to become the champion. And Sean wanted them to believe it because he was unbelievable. The guy, he's the kind of guy you could take and throw him to the corner and say, do that thing you do. You know what I mean? He doesn't, effortless.
Yeah.
He's effortless.
That segment you did backstage with Stone Cold was hilarious.
Oh, the one where I said it. Which one? I did 2 of them. I did one with the coffee.
The one where you jump over the table.
Oh, 3 takes. 3 takes.
Okay. Why 3 takes?
3 takes because, I was drinking coffee and the whole storyline was somebody was trying to hit him with a car. And he's seen me in a car that was on a highway next to them, and I know who it was that was doing it. He's trying to figure out who it is. So he's questioning me to tell him who the person was who did it.
Yeah, this is when Rikishi ended up hitting him with the car.
Whatever the story was.
He did it for The Rock.
The vignette was where he comes up to me, I'm drinking a cup of coffee, and he's telling me, I know you know, and all this bullshit. And he's telling me all this stuff. And then he goes to stick his hand out to shake my hand. And I flinch like he's going to hit me. And I fall backwards, flip backwards with the coffee in my hand. Well, let's try that one more time. And in those days, I could do shit like that where I could flip over and I could do this. I'm not getting hurt.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? My biggest problem was coffee all over my shirt. But we did it 3 times, and it aired. And there was another vignette where I asked him, I told him I wanted to be his partner because Vince actually went in the ring, and you can find this too. Vince says, Steve Austin has no partner tonight, and he's facing, I think, and I'm not going to say names of talents, so I can't remember. I think it was Undertaker or whoever it was, this guy and this guy. But we have found a suitable opponent for him, and that opponent is the Brooklyn Brawler. Vince McMahon is saying this. This is the jobber. This is the jobber. Yeah, I was sure doing a job. I was doing every job they asked me to do, and I was doing it. I was doing it like convincingly as you could believe. I always said I deserve an Oscar because like an actor, I'm playing different parts.
Yeah,
and it's hard. It's not hard because I put my heart in each one. I went from Steve Lombardi. I went to a Brooklyn Brawler. I went to a clown. I went to a baseball player. I went to a manager. I mean, the things I've done. I even was a kangaroo. Did you know that? Find that. I was a kangaroo for the Bushwhackers, where I was in a kangaroo outfit, and I would hop to the ring as the Bushwhackers would come out, and nobody knew that was ever me.
Your career sounds like you were just okay with saying yes.
I would say yes to anything they asked me to do. One time Vince walked into the ring and he says, I need somebody to get beat by I don't even know the right term used to it, a little person, dink. A
little person.
You can't say this, you can't say that. Little person.
Yeah.
And everybody put their head down. I raised my hand. Yeah. He was wearing a Randy Savage mask when he beat me. So I said to myself, first of all, I don't care.
Yeah.
Second of all, Randy Savage beat me. You know what I mean? I just don't care about winning and losing.
Do you think about a Hall of Fame spot? Do you think that the Brooklyn Brawler could get inducted in the Hall of Fame?
I think the Brooklyn Brawler has more contributions, more accolades to be in the Hall of Fame. I believe that being in the Hall of Fame is their choice. I am not losing sleep over not being in the Hall of Fame, but I believe that there's no way in life that one day I won't be in the Hall of Fame. I just hope it's not when I'm dead. Mm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I don't, to me, you know what I mean? I've done so much. And the one thing that no one could ever take away from me is my memories. Mm. You know what I mean? My memories are second to none.
You never won a championship, but was there ever talk of you winning a championship?
Yes. Bret Hart said to Vince, and you could ask Bret this, he says, I will not drop the belt to Shawn Michaels. That's a Macho Screwjob. But I will drop it to Steve Lombardi. And he said that, I quote him, and he would tell you right in an interview, if you interviewed him, he would tell you that he said that.
Wow.
But of course, Vince wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
And I told Vince, and he goes to me, and if you did wrestle me in the garden, he goes, I wasn't going to kick out. I says, you know what would have happened, Brett? I would have got fired. Because if I didn't throw my body off of you, Vince would have said it was my fault for pinning you. He goes, that's not fair. I says, life isn't fair.
I feel like there could have been a storyline when so many people were winning the Hardcore Championship, or then later on, so many people were winning the 24/7 Championship. You could have won. You could have won a few times there. I feel like
could have, should have, would have.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't write the script. I just do it. I do what the script says.
Yeah.
That's what kills me because, like movies, people play parts in movies, and why don't people say, well, why do you always get killed in the movie? Why is he always killing people in the movie? Why is this and that? All I was doing is doing movies.
Yeah.
That's all I was doing.
Hey, you were doing your job.
I was doing my job, and I was doing it, and they were asking me for the most absurd things to do, but yet I was doing it anyway.
Let's talk about your other match with The Rock.
Rock was already on the top of his game, and Hunter and China were like I don't know if they were GMs. I don't know. I can't remember the whole story.
It was Hunter and Steph, right?
Oh, Hunter and Steph. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Hunter and Steph. Hunter and Steph were in the ring, and Hunter and Steph, Rock was on top of the apron, and he said, or in Tron, I don't remember how it worked, but he said, Rock, you're not on the top anymore. You're going to have to start from the beginning again. You have to start at the beginning again. So I got to wrestle Rock in the Garden again. But the problem is when I walked out in the Garden, they cheer me. I could walk out right now in Barclays Center Monday, which I tweeted out. I don't know if you've seen it or not. I said, what would happen if the Brooklyn Brawler walked out in Barclays Center on WWE Raw and that's all I said. It's like 200 likes in like 20 seconds. I'm like, what? People would become unglued. Unglued. Because I was there one time, the first show ever in the Barclays Center, and I won a 6-man match. Did you know that?
No.
It was me, The Miz, and Del Rio against 3MB. And I beat, he became world champion now.
Jinder Mahal.
Jinder Mahal, very good. Jinder Mahal in a Boston Crab, which was, they call it the Brooklyn Crab, whatever they did. They put a spin on it. But the funny part about it was, now this is something no one knows about. After I did this, they put a picture on the wall in the Barclays Center of me having Jinder Mahal on the wall right next to Madonna and all these different people.
Wow.
And Vince hated it. He hated it. So Vince totally said, you should have took it down. You should have took it down. So then he's all of a sudden he's like, it's your fault the picture's up there. I said, how's it my fault? I don't own the building. I don't own the picture. I don't own anything. He was he's more or less playing a stupid joke. But anyway, he took it down. He took it down. And the picture was, the boys would go loving it. They were like freaking out. I remember the boys were taking pictures of it, tweeting it out, and they were doing all this stuff. And then he said to me, well, I'm putting you in the ring with Ryback. He wanted to punish me the following day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Ryback comes up to me and he goes, you know what? I'm going to give you a match like you're a main eventer. But he didn't tell Vince that. That
was your last match, right?
No.
Well, your last match was against Ryback.
No, my last match was against Luke the Bushwhacker at Tommy Fierro's show in New York somewhere.
Oh, maybe I'm talking about your last
WWE. My last WWF match might have been that. I don't know. I don't even follow anything like that. But they had a production meeting. They always had a production meeting. So, after I worked with Ryback, that match could be YouTube too. And Ryback just sold for me. And it was like, he was giving me like a main event match. And that time Ryback was holding 3 people up and dropping them down, and they were building them and all that stuff, which I actually like Ryback, and I thought he looked the part and all that stuff, whatever issues he might have had with the company and all that, and his health. But I remember, I'll never forget, Road Dogg goes, excuse me, Road Dogg goes, hey, Vince, did you see Ryback in Brooklyn Brawler? He goes, I don't give a shit about him. And that's what he said. I said, oh, my God, I got heat with the boss now. I was believing this. So there's a production meeting. And then I'm outside, and this is like the day after. This is after Ryback. This is the next day. And then there's a production meeting, and there's all the vice presidents, the agents, the producers, whatever names. They change them all the time. But then somebody comes out. I think it was Johnny Laurinaitis or somebody. But he comes out and he goes, Vince wants to see you in the meeting. I went, holy shit, this is weird. So Vince is at the head of the table, and there's about 40 people sitting in chairs facing the head of the table. And he says to me, I want you to apologize to everybody in this room for that picture that was on the wall. I said to myself, this is weird. That's what I said to myself, in my own mind. And I said, I turned to the people and I says, I want to apologize for not being the type of person that would break the law, that would walk into a building that I do not own and to not take a picture down that I do not own, and by doing the right thing. And I look at Vince and he goes, "You call that an apology?" And I says, "He'll do it again." And I said, "I want to apologize for not taking down a picture that I don't own in a building that I do not own, and I did not put the picture up. I had nothing to do with it. I don't even care about the picture." He goes, and I looked at him, I said, "And Vince, I apologize to you if it upset you." And he couldn't hold it in. He cracked up and he laughed. And he shook my hand, and Hunter laughed, and I said to Hunter, "You asshole." You know what I mean?
How was your relationship with Vince? You were there for 30 plus years.
Vince, actually, well, he kept me for 32 years, so it must have been pretty good. He used to say shit to me like, if I asked you to take a flag off the top of the building, you would come down with 2 flags. He says, I mean, anything. Like when Hunter got hurt, he ripped both of his quadriceps out.
And he kept wrestling during that match.
No, Hunter now.
Yeah, no, Hunter.
Hunter did that, yeah.
Yeah, and he was in that match with Jericho, had him in the walls of Jericho, his quads torn.
And Hunter requested me to go with him to Birmingham to see the famous surgeon they use in Birmingham.
Dr. Andrews.
Dr. Andrews, very good, to fly with him and to go with him. I stood in the hotel with him, and you know what I mean? This is the guy that did not have a contribution to the company. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the funny part about it was I left early that day. And then Vince calls my cell phone, and then he says, "Where are you?" I said, "Well, Vince, I was heading out to the next town." He goes, "Well, don't leave early. But anyway," I think you wouldn't even care about that. He goes, "I need you to come back because I need you to fly with Hunter to Birmingham." I says, "Did something happen?" He goes, "He tore his quadriceps."
Mm.
And I went with him, and I took him there, and this and that. But you know, the things that I've done, you know what I mean? It's ridiculous. It sounds like a movie.
What's the most memorable moment that you've been able to witness? Not a match that you've been in, but you've been there for whatever, this massive moment, this massive match.
Probably the WrestleMania where the face-off came between Hogan, Stone Cold, and Rock together, looking at each other in the ring. I ran to the front of the first row, right in front of the first row, and I took a picture of it. It was an epic picture. Mm-hmm. It was an epic picture. I don't know if you've ever seen that picture. It's the 3 of them together, and I thought that was an epic moment. I thought the epic moment was when Rock would say, would go out and they would say, "Rocky sucks" in the beginning. So he had his like problems in the beginning with Rock too. Yeah. "Rocky sucks." He was taking it to heart, you know, like he didn't like that. Yeah. You know, he wouldn't show the people he didn't like it, but so he comes back and he's thinking about it. Then his next promo, he walks out and he says, "You know what? When The Rock always comes out here, all I hear is you people say Rocky sucks, Rocky sucks. The only thing I just want to say one thing is this: it doesn't matter what you think." And when he said that, "We love you, we love you, we love you," it was like reverse psychology.
That's when he went from Rocky Maivia to The Rock, right?
Yeah. He didn't want the Maivia. He didn't want. I mean, it was always. I mean, remember what he had was Flex Savannah. Yeah. I mean, like weird shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But talk about working with Kurt Angle.
I worked with Kurt Angle. He offered $10,000 to any wrestler that would come out and wrestle him, and I was the chosen one to come out and challenge him. And it was in a town in Michigan. It was a house show, and I wrestled him. And great guy, great attitude, nothing bad to say about him. I think he's a great person. He actually saved me because they were going to do something on me it's called the laminectomy. Did you ever hear that term?
No.
That's where they cut all the bones out of the back of your neck to ease the strain on your spine, because my spine was being crushed, which was causing pain all the way down my arm. Mm. And I was interviewing because I was in charge of it was called the pre-tape room, which is the interview room. And Kurt Angle turned to me and he goes, I was telling him they're going to do a laminectomy on me. He goes, "Don't do it." He says, I tell you what to do. Go to Pittsburgh. see Dr. Joe, J-H-O. Cheap plug for you, Dr. Joe. And he will go into minimally invasive neurosurgery. And they go in with tiny tubes through my throat, move my trachea aside, cut out the bone spurs that's pushing on the spine, put a Band-Aid, and I'm in the gym the next day.
Wow.
I'm in the gym the next day. I mean, he saved me. Because laminectomy is the type of thing, like if I patted you on the back and said, hey, good to see you, Chris, you would pass out.
Wow.
You know what I mean? But he saved me. He saved me.
What do you think of this era of wrestling that we're in right now?
I don't like it. I think that the 80s and the 90s was the magical moments. It was the magical moments, you know? And I today's day and age, I think it's completely different. Like a battle royal, for example. They would go up to 20 different guys, bring them in a room, and they'd say, you're 1, you're 2, you're 3, you're 4, you're 5, you're 6. Like today, it would be like, this guy throws out the first guy, and then the second guy looks at the third guy. He goes for a clothesline, and the guy ducks, and he does this, and he does that. They choreograph it.
It's too overproduced?
Too overproduced. Too overproduced.
I feel like something's changed over the last, call it, year or two. Maybe it's with Triple H in charge. Wrestling feels like it's exciting again.
Because of Rock, I think.
The Rock turning heel is
Rock is
else.
Freaking the people out. You know what I mean? I don't know why he got that, why he did that. You know, I know it's the writers. I don't know, is the writers' strike still going on?
No, that ended last year.
But the beauty of Rock is, you know, I don't know if he's hurting his movie career at all. You know what I mean? Because he's becoming a wrestler again.
I don't know. It's just the best performance he's done in a long time, maybe ever.
Yeah, but they're pushing the envelope now.
Yes.
See how he's beating up Cody Rhodes and he's getting blood and all this stuff.
It feels like the Attitude Era is coming back or something like that.
Yeah. It's all because of Rock. It's all because of Rock.
He's certainly pushing this forward.
Yeah. I mean, he's saving the company really because. I mean, AEW is a big deal. I mean, I give accolades to the AEW, and I love Chris Jericho and a lot of people in the AEW. I've crossed paths with, but the 80s and 90s to me were my favorite. You know what it was like in the 80s, like the late 80s, early 90s, being a Brooklyn Brawler, even enhancing people, or even being the jobber. I was like a hero to Brooklyn. You know what I mean? I couldn't pay for anything. You know what I mean? It was like being a huge celebrity because I was on the TV more than the top guys because I was on TV every single week.
The role you were in doesn't really exist now.
No, they did away with it.
If there is an enhancement talent, it's a local person. They live in this town. They don't get an entrance, and that's it.
No,
you were able to put everyone over.
Yeah, and I had a character.
Yeah.
You know, like now everybody looks like accountants. You know,
what does that mean?
It means like everybody looks like in real life you could really beat them up. You know what I mean? Like it's like I don't want to knock wrestlers. I just want to say when I came in it was different. It was Hulk Hogan. It was you know
larger than life
characters, and then the mold was broken by Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels because the smaller guys actually proved themselves.
I think there's something very relatable to that, right? Someone who's 5'10" looks at someone like that and goes, "Oh, I don't have to be 6'6" to be a wrestler."
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. And they proved it.
Yeah.
You know, at first I'm sure Vince was reluctant about it, and I know he was reluctant about it, but because he was always a big fan of the big man, and he changed his attitude. You know what I mean? And I don't know where it's going now. All I know is like Harvey Whippleman. He just went to Memphis to do a documentary with Rock. That's when they called me up. They called me up with a goofy phone call and all this shit. And because when Rock got evicted from his house and all that stuff, and he was, and then they showed the thing in the Young Rock where Vince goes, "You're very talented. I enjoyed it, but you're not ready for WWF. I'm sending you to Memphis." He goes, "You know anybody in Memphis?" He goes, "Yes, I have family." Did you see that?
Yeah.
And then he sees Bruno.
Yeah.
And he hugs Bruno, and he lives with Bruno for a little bit. And then Bruno buys him his first car. It was like a car for $40. They bought it off a crack dealer. And Brock is 16 years old. He's not supposed to drive. And then they drive it away, and they realize there's a crackhead sleeping in the back seat because they hear him moaning and groaning. He tells that story on TV, and that's why Rock bought a brand new F-150 for Bruno. And he said to Bruno, he put Bruno in his series also, but he put him in 14 episodes. Not him, the actor, playing him in 14 episodes. And he says, and then the truck comes behind the take when Bruno was doing the take, and Bruno gets pissed off, like, holy shit, I thought that one was good, this and that. Rock gets out and looks at him and goes, you bought me my first car, I'm buying you your last car.
I think a lot of people don't remember all the time you spent behind the scenes as a producer. So obviously all the work you did in the ring, then you worked as a producer. You were with WWE for 32 years.
32 years.
What was the reason that they gave you when they let you go after 32 years?
That's a subject that no one will ever know, but Hunter, Vince, me, and all I can say is it's not like people think.
Okay.
It's not like people think. I'm not going to give the details of it, but I was told that a question like that would be asked. And the question is not warranted. It really isn't, because I was ready. I couldn't do it. 2 to 4 planes a week for 32 years. That's a lot of traveling. Even now, coming to conventions like this, like the Expo Center.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like in Indianapolis was a 38-minute flight. The planes and the walking in the airports and all that. It's great when you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s. I'm going to be 63 April 18th. You know what I mean? I'm getting up there.
Hey, happy early birthday.
I'm getting up there. I'm getting up there, and you know what? Life is opening more doors now. I'm gonna break more doors open now that when you see it, you're gonna be interviewing me for other things other than wrestling.
Let's do it,
because it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. Did you see my tweet with Hugh Jackman?
No.
He tweeted out. He says, "I got to meet the Brooklyn Brawler backstage, and I remember seeing him in 1984 with my father before I was an actor, and I was 14 years old before I was an actor." He actually he asked me he came up to me.
This was in Cleveland, wasn't it?
I don't remember the town, but
I think so, for Raw, right?
Yeah, he was a GM. We used to have guest GMs.
Yes.
And he says, "You're the only person I recognize in this building." I said, "And how the hell is that?" I said, I'm supposed to come up to you. He goes, "Do you mind if I take a picture with you and tweet it out?" I said, "Yeah, that's fine." And he did it. And then, of course, I got heat for it. I'm bothering the celebrities, even though they're coming up to me. Kevin Hart came up to me, and he asked me to take a picture with him. I got heat for that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Unwarranted heat. Because there's certain people in the company that are no longer with the company that would make up stories. You know what I mean? But if a guy comes up to you, if an actor comes up to you and says, "Hey, you want to do a selfie together?" And you say yes. Is it your fault?
No, of course not.
Well, it was my fault.
What do you think is the legacy?
My legacy?
That you've left behind?
The legacy I left behind was I had a storybook life that came true. I loved everything I did. If I could change my life in any way, I wouldn't change one thing. I would not change one thing. And the legacy is determined by every different person in a different way. And obviously, you have an opinion of my legacy. WWE has an opinion of my legacy, but all I know is I have more contributions and I have done more in the company than a lot of people. And I'm not asking for anything. I'm just telling the truth. And that is a story of my WWE life.
32 years in WWE. If someone were to come up to you today at this convention and say, "Steve, I want to do this for a living. I want to be a pro wrestler," what's the advice that you give them?
I would say, do you believe it in your heart and soul? If you believe it in your heart and soul and you make that goal, nothing can stop you. I says, because you will get a confidence inside of you that will be felt by every single person that sees you. I said, and I don't care if you're a garbage man, an accountant, I don't care what you do. I don't care if you're a lawyer, a doctor, I don't care what you are. I said, if you don't have a goal, start with taking your boss's job and watch what happens. Watch what happens. I says, they'll feel your confidence. They're not going to not know how to label it. You're going to look in the mirror and you're going to see a person that has confidence. You're going to see your own reflection and it's going to look different to you. That's what I would say to them. And I have said to them, and I've already got 8 people that have told me I've changed their life by giving them advice like that. And one person wanted to work for Louis Vuitton. And he says, my goal in life, and I feel it with my heart and soul, is to be the president of Louis Vuitton. And I says, you know what? If you feel that, I believe in you and you will do it. 3 weeks ago, he said to me, Brooklyn Brawler, what you said to me that day, I now work for Louis Vuitton.
Wow.
It's stuff like that.
Yeah.
Another guy got a promotion the day after. He applied what I said. It works. It's the secret to success. That's the reason your podcast is so successful, because you believe it's going to be successful, and it was successful, and it is successful, and numbers don't lie.
Yeah.
And that's why I wanted to be on your podcast.
I've wanted to have you on the podcast for a long time.
You know what? I wanted to do this, and I never in my life have ever wanted to be on somebody's podcast but yours, and I've denied other podcasts not to do them, to do yours.
Wow. Thank you.
And only because I see the way you conduct it, I see the way it's produced, and I'm giving you flowers now.
You're putting me over right now.
Yeah,
thank you.
So let's do
you're enhancing me right now.
I'm enhancing you. My passion in life is to bring other people up, and you know what? You deserve it.
Thank you.
You deserve it.
This has been such a pleasure, being able to sit here and hear these stories and sit under your learning tree. I talk about gratitude at the end of every single episode because it's such a big, important part of my life. What are 3 things in your life, Steve, that you're grateful for as we sit here right now?
I'm grateful for my past. I'm grateful for my wife. And I'm mostly grateful for what's going to happen in my future. Because all I have to do is believe in it. And I already got something in my mind that I'm going to do. And it's going to happen because I already talked to people that are very, very high up in what I want to do. And they have every successful person I've ever talked to. And I'm going back as far as Burt Reynolds. I know, Jennifer Hudson, one of the Jacksons, Jermaine Jackson. I know him. I know Tony Orlando. And everyone says, Toby Keith, great example.
May he rest in peace.
I actually posted a picture with him. I don't know if you've seen that one, but I said to him, what did the football players say when you told me you want to be a country singer? He said to me, they laughed at me. They told me it's impossible. You'll never make it. Football players do not become singers. I said, and what did you say to yourself? He says, I'm going to do it anyway because I know I can do it. And I said, thank you, thank you, thank you. You are preaching what I feel completely. He says, good for you. He goes, you will be successful. And I feel I was successful. If I could change my career in any way, I wouldn't. I wouldn't say I want to be a world champion. I wouldn't say that because I know I wouldn't have another Steve Lombardi putting me over. You know what I mean? Because a lot of people that were enhancement talent or jobbers, I don't care what word you use, they're greedy. They take too much offense and they use their time to get themselves over. And that's, I don't know if I can say any more. That's my feelings in life.
I love it.
My feeling.
And I love how motivational this is.
Everybody tells me I'm motivational, but I'm just telling my feelings. That's all I'm telling them. You know what I mean? Motivation is just teaching others the secrets to success. And the secret to success is self-belief. And if you have self-belief, nothing can stop you because you own yourself. Opportunity doesn't come, you create it. You create the opportunity. And that is a great motto to live by.
And what a perfect spot to end this. Steve, such an immense pleasure. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you for having me here. It's been a pleasure. And I always watch your interviews, and I always will. And you're just a great podcaster.
Appreciate you.
Did I say that right, podcaster?
Yeah, podcaster.
Yeah.
Podcaster, whatever I am. I'm just the guy who talks to amazing people like you.
No, you enhance people like me.
But you enhanced me in this one.
You
so
are the
thank
Brooklyn.
you.
You are the Brooklyn Brawler of the podcasters.
Wow.
That's what you are.